Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So I am sitting in front of my bookshelf, which means it's time to talk about some booktube stuff. And today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in January. This month was actually my most successful reading month, I think, since I've started booktube. So yeah, it was a good month. Lots of stuff got read, some things I loved, some things I hate. So let's talk about it. So I read 7 full books up to the day I'm recording this, which is the 28th. So I may get one more book in there, but I will mention that at the end. But I have my notes here about what I read and all that good stuff. So the first book I read was Addicted to You. I read this in ebook form. This is my first ebook I've read in a really long time. And this one was 332 Kindle pages, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So this is like a new adult romance about a girl named Lily who is addicted to sex, and her best childhood friend, whose name escapes me, is Lauren, but they call him like Lo or Lou the whole book. And he's an alcoholic, so just trigger warnings there. There's a lot of alcohol and there's no drugs in the book, but there are times that Lily is in very dangerous situations. So there's a lot of drama in this book, and basically they're fake dating to hide from their rich parents that they have these addictions that would basically shame them and get them out of their trust funds. And I would compare this book to watching like Dynasty or something that's just really filled with drama and kind of one of those like guilty pleasure shows. I know a lot of people don't like this book because there is some like toxic relationship traits in there, and there definitely is like certain parts of the book I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to keep reading, but it was short enough that I kind of just pushed through it and it ended up being okay. Like I said, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's new adult, which I don't read a whole lot of. I'm more YA with a lot of things, but it was interesting. There was a lot of dynamics, and I think the ending kind of turned the way I looked at stuff. I don't know yet if I'll continue on with this series. I know it's like 6 books, and then there's like a spin-off series about Lily's sisters. But yeah, I was just not a big fan of Lily either. Like, she seemed really whiny, and I understand part of it was like her trying to get her fill for her addiction at times, but it was like she wanted to stop, but she wasn't really trying to stop. And the way she was enabling Lou the whole time, I don't know, I had mixed opinions, and I feel like a lot of people do with this book. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars on that, and not sure I'll be continuing with this series. So the next book I read is actually a comic, and that is Harley Quinn Volume 3 Red Meat, and this I gave 5 out of 5 stars. This one is, there's definitely more like action and violence, but not in such a graphic way in this one. But there's also time travel, and you get a lot of backstory about some of the characters, and Harley and her parents are involved in this a little bit, which is fun because you never really see like Harley's parents at all. But you also see Harley as more of a hero in certain spots. This is kind of where she really takes the anti-hero kind of turn, which I love. And with the new Birds of Prey movie coming out, I think this is like a good read if you're interested in that movie. This whole series is a good one to read if you're interested in that series, but this one for sure kind of, I think, sets up for that movie. So I really like this one, and I'm trying to think if there was like a specific moment. Yeah, you get some new characters and a really interesting storyline that I haven't seen done yet. So I was really happy with this one. It was very good. The next thing I read is another comic. I read Wonder Woman DC Rebirth Volume 6. So this is the last one, and this is Children of the Gods. I also gave this a 5 out of 5. There is a lot more mythology tied into this one, which is such a big part of where Wonder Woman comes from and her origin story. So I was really happy to see that included, and finding out that Wonder Woman has siblings. It's crazy. That's not really a spoiler. That's kind of laid out from the very beginning. But there's a twist in there that I don't want to spoil, but you do get a lot more mythology. So even if you're not interested in superheroes and you're more into Greek mythology and stuff, I would recommend reading this one, because you don't really have to read the other ones in order to understand this one. but it was so good. I flew through that one in like a day. It was so good, and there was so much more depth to it, and it was definitely a good wrap up to that series. I stuck with my goal of continuing series this month and read Witch 2, The Disappearance. This is a continuation of the book I read in December called Witch that starts off the series. This is 144 pages plus some comic book inserts, so it's a mixed media. And I give this a 3 out of 5. So it's a middle grade fantasy, and I said this before in the other book, but in this one as well, you can definitely tell it was written quite a while ago, because the descriptions of the girls changing into their like witch fairy selves is very like focused on them becoming curvy, and like just the descriptions of their bodies is like really strange in the way that they depict them. It's like kind of creepy, and it's really hard to move past at certain points. But this one was a little sad. There's some death and grieving, but mainly it's action. So it's a good series. It's just at times kind of skeevy. Next one I read is a little out of season, but I read the sequel to Hocus Pocus, and I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. It is a YA fantasy, and the whole book itself is 522 pages. The sequel is definitely longer. It starts on page 203, so it's, you know, pretty hefty itself. But this is a brand new story that is supposed to be taking place in 2018, and there's a lot of diversity and LGBTQ representation, which is nice. But there were certain points in the book where they would just talk about iPhones and like just really trying to spell it out for you. That was in 2018, and a lot of like really corny references or language, like kind of in a way like no one talks like that. Almost like an older person trying to use like younger person vernacular, and it was just, it took you out of the story sometimes. There were some references to some other Disney things in here, which was cool. There was some Haunted Mansion stuff, and it did leave on a cliffhanger ending, so I don't know if they're going to write more books for this or if any of this is going to come to TV, but it is definitely clear that Freeform, who published this book, is trying to get this on TV, because just the way they describe the characters, basically the main boy character, I don't think could be anyone but Jordan Fisher, and he's been involved in a lot of the Halloween stuff the last couple years. One of the girls could definitely be Vanessa Hudgens, and the other people you can kind of figure out from their normal cast of characters, like who could be where in it. So yeah, I definitely think they're going to try and put it on TV, and hopefully it won't ruin the first one. I read Reflection by Elizabeth Lim, and this is a Disney Twisted Tale. It is a Mulan retelling. It was 408 pages, and this was the most grueling 408 pages I have ever read in my life. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's a YA fantasy. There is a lot of, so Mulan is in the underworld trying to save Shang after he has been injured during the war, and it all kind of starts in that scene in the movie when Mulan fires the cannon to trigger the avalanche. But instead of Shan Yu not dying, he does die, but Shang also dies as well. So it starts so slow. When I tell you this book really tested me, it did. I wanted to put it down so many times, but I felt like that a few times with the Twisted Tales series, but it usually only takes me 100 pages before I'm like, okay, and I finish it. This, literally until page 308, I was like, I'm gonna put this down, I'm gonna put this down. It was so hard to read. I was looking for other things to read, any excuse not to finish this book. The last 100 pages is where it got interesting, honestly. It just was not for me. There was a lot of things that just seemed like unnecessary, or a lot of filler, or it took so long to get through certain parts. So yeah, gave it a 4 out of 5 just because it's well written, but this just like was not for me. And the last book I have completed in January thus far is Darcy Sweet Death Comes to Town. This is an ebook and is a cozy mystery. So there are no pages, but I gave this a 4 out of 5. It is an adult paranormal mystery, and there's a little bit of psychic stuff going on. There's a little bit of romance. There's several murders, and it all takes place in a small town. This book, again, was kind of slow to start, but once it got going, you could kind of see where things were going. It was pretty predictable from the beginning, but figuring out who did what was actually really interesting. Like, you kind of have your suspicions, but then there's a good twist, I will say. There's a good twist. There's a lot of different things that go on to kind of keep the story moving. It wasn't slow paced at all, and I thought it might be, but because it's a cozy mystery, it's supposed to be fairly short. I think if you actually put it on pages, it might only be 150. So yeah, I really liked it. I'm going to continue on with the series, and honestly, after reading Mulan, I needed something to kind of get me excited about reading something quick that I could get through really easily and enjoy, and I definitely did. So I think I'm going to save my cozy mysteries on my Kindle for moments when I feel like I'm going to go into a reading slump and need to pull myself out of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Make sure you subscribe, comment, and share with your friends, and leave me your opinions about any of the books I've read if you've read them too. Bye.